Good evening. My name is Patrick Tuohey. I'm here this afternoon representing the Show Me Institute. My colleague Michael Rathbone has provided some testimony, which is being distributed now, which focuses on a study conducted at the University of California at San Diego. And some of the previous speakers indicated that what you have before you is a moral issue, and I absolutely agree. And a lot of the discussion is about the need to do well. But in fact, the impact of the minimum wage does not do as much good as people think. Only about 13% of people who earn the minimum wage are at or below the poverty level. In fact, 44%, the majority are above it, and 44% of minimum wage earners live in households that make 3 times the poverty rate. Even Christine Romer, President Obama's the chairman of his economic advisors, says that raising the minimum wage is not a good way to address poverty. And the reason for that is we all experience in the economy when the price of something goes up, we buy less of it. And it's the same for employers too. When the price of labor goes up, we use less. We cut back, we hire fewer people. In some cases, we may lay people off. What we're seeing already in the economy are grocery stores going to automated checkout, restaurants where you order through tablets. And that's exactly because they're trying to cut down on the cost of labor. What happens in this case, when you raise the minimum wage, is when you have fewer jobs but the same number of people competing for them, the low-skilled people who are at the greatest disadvantage are the ones that lose out. And the study that I referenced from the University of California in San Diego makes the point that increasing the minimum wage reduces the ability for low-skilled workers to get to $1,500 a month jobs. And so I put before you, this is a moral issue, and I understand that everybody wants to do the right thing, but it is not enough to actually want to do the right thing. My faith tradition, as echoed by some people earlier, require that you actually do the right thing. And so I encourage you to adopt policies that make more jobs available, not minimum wage legislation that in effect reduces jobs and reduces jobs for the people at the bottom of the economic ladder who desperately need them. Thank you for your time.
Hold on, Mr. Tuohey. I'm going to break with policy a little bit. Mayor Pro Tem has a question that I think may be pertinent in light of the study that you just handed out.
And it may not be you, Mr. Tuohey, it may be an economist or someone else, but we saw a graph earlier today that was two of them that had a very distinct point in time in the late 70s where productivity and wages up until that point pretty much followed along. So we're having all of these arguments that probably would have been the same arguments pro or con before the late 70s. But somewhere along the way, somewhere at that point in time where it matches with productivity and minimum wage, it splits and there's a dramatic divide. But we're not having the conversation of why that happened. What is the history of that? When did we start changing the policy in America that productivity and wages don't match? Have you done any studies on that?
The testimony I have today does not address that. I will be happy to get you anything that does speak to that, but certainly Christine Romer spoke in the New York Times at around 2011. And regardless of employment policies in the 70s, what we see today that minimum wage is a very clumsy, broad weapon to use to address poverty.
And that's why I asked the question, is because we're not answering why, what was the philosophy, what was the political direction, what was the commercial direction, what was the economic direction, why did productivity and minimum wage split and has continued and divided that farther? No one's talking about that. I don't know the answer, but I think we want to know history so we can understand the future. And if we leave that out of the equation of this conversation, I think we're missing something, because I don't know. It's very distinctly there. There is a point in time that both of those lines match. And I don't know what the conversation was then, what the policy direction was then, what was the forces behind those policy directions, and why. And I think if we don't understand why, we'll never really find the answer to the questions we're having today.
I am familiar with the chart you speak of. I will get back to you with that.